why don't we pour some salt on Obama and his third memoir, which, by the way, this is the first edition.
It's crazy.
Of 2 editions of his third memoir. So there it is.
I was seeing all the discourse around his new book for a while, and then I just assumed that it was like his whole presidency, and no, it's just his first term. It only covers the first term. There's gonna be another massive book just to get through his second term. Bungler, Comrade Obama himself. My God, third book about his own life. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there are some wonderful people out there who have already begun reading the book, and they've shared some excerpts. And, if you're on Twitter at all, you might have come across this, in some lefty circles. But he has some thoughts on Lula da Silva. And I just wish, I wish Michael were here to do this segment with us. Because he would certainly appreciate the tone of the conversation we're about to have. But, in this memoir, he talks about Lula da Silva, who was a political prisoner of Bolsonaro's, okay? The whole Lava Jato investigation, Operation Car Wash, was an effort to pin corruption charges against Lula da Silva and imprison him right before the election. Polls indicated that he was a favorite by far. And Bolsonaro, along with the justice minister, Moro, were like, let's just find some weird way to throw him in prison. And that's exactly what happened. Eventually, he was let out, but at that point, it was too late. Bolsonaro had already been elected. Now, keep in mind, Lula da Silva lifted tens of millions of people in Brazil out of poverty, okay? And he did so understanding that he needed to operate with the system that already existed. Like, you don't just get elected. Like, this is the thing that drives me crazy. And I love that Michael would drive this point home all the time. People constantly want purity, perfect moral, you don't ever, people he's got to operate anyway. He's got to operate under that system. And he did so in a way that prioritized lifting tens of millions of people out of poverty. And he actually wasn't imprisoned for corruption. So what I wanted to just bring up is, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. It just irritates me. But in Obama's book, he talks about how Lula da Silva, he compares him to Tammany Hall. So let's look at this Twitter thread. I'll read you what it says. Benjamin Fogel, contributing editor to Africa as a Country, and Jacobin is the one who wrote this thread. And he writes, Obama describes Lula in his new memoir as having the scruples of a Tammany Hall boss. Of course, he has nothing to say about the questionable ethics and illegalities of Lava Jato or Sergio Moro. Of course, Sergio Moro was the justice minister. And then he continues to say, others have pointed out that Obama was suckled at the political teat of the delay machine in Chicago.
The Daily.
Oh, Daily. Yeah. Okay, Daily Machine in Chicago.
Chuck
in
Daly,
my mind, a more objectionable... Oh, Chuck Daly. Okay, got it. In my mind, a more objectionable political machine to Tammany, and appointed a certain Rahm Emanuel as his chief of staff. As soon as he got elected, Citibank poured money into the Obama's administration. There's no question about it. You could read the rest of that tweet, but to anyone who would argue that Lula da Silva is somehow more corrupt than Obama was is just laughable, to say the least. Obama focused a huge portion of his foreign policy, he bungled it, but a huge portion of his foreign policy on this pivot to Asia that was a complete and utter disaster. And why did he do that? He did that based on think tanks essentially working with him, think tanks pouring money into Democratic campaigns and, influencing Obama through lobbying. I mean, corruption is how everything runs in this country. So it's just the holier than thou bullshit is what I can't stand.
I said Chuck Daly. Chuck Daly was the coach of the Detroit Pistons. It's Richard Daley. The Daley family controlled Chicago for decades. So no politician was coming up through Illinois politics without the Daley machine being on board. Barack Obama named his son to be his chief of staff when he was elected president. Okay, so that's Bill Daley was his chief of staff. So just that's a political machine. That's how that works. It's a patronage operation. Lula da Silva is, we've talked about it a million times. Michael used to talk about it a million times. But beyond the lifting of people out of poverty in Brazil that he did well, he was president of Brazil in the 2000s. His career, like his political trajectory, different from Obama's. Lula da Silva was a union leader. His finger was cut off as a factory worker. He then, in the late 1970s, led a series of wildcat strikes that was the beginning of the end for the military dictatorship. I mean, if you want to talk about like being an anti-fascist, like Lula da Silva was on the front lines of a fight against an oppressive and brutal U.S.-backed military dictatorship. He founded the PT Party in 1980, and that was a huge push to end Brazil's military dictatorship in the 1980s. So beyond what he did as president in his dealings with Obama, I mean, his career has always been about helping people, about fighting the most oppressive forces in the universe against working people. And the fact that Obama just dismissively throws him aside like that, it's so disgusting. I mean, if Barack Obama had done one thousandth of a percentage point of what Lula has done in his life, he would be proud. But he hasn't even done that. He's done less than that. He's done active amounts of harm. I mean, the bigger distance I get from Obama, the more insidious I find him as a political figure, in that he came around in a moment when there was this really age-defining economic crisis and financial collapse.
Definitely.
Really, those moments are opportunities, just like Rahm Emanuel, who, by the way, then became the mayor of Chicago, a little member of the political machine. Talk about a Tammany Hall machine. A good crisis, you cannot let it go to waste. And what Barack Obama did by hinting as this transformative change figure, as this left figure, that he was able to do out of pure personal charisma and superficial appeals to sort of hope and change, was to absorb all that rage and energy and then just basically diffuse it, and then of course he delivered nothing, which then led to Trump. So the actual political effects of Obama are negative, whereas the political effects of Lula, who is uneducated, did not go to Harvard like Barack Obama, doesn't know the polite niceties that you need to do to operate within the elite like Barack Obama has learned, is an unquestioned net positive on the world. So it's infuriating to me.
Yeah. And this is, by the way, this is just one part, like one small excerpt from this book. And it's getting a lot of attention because of how ridiculous it is. But going back to what you were saying about, what the priorities were for Lula versus, the economic priorities for Obama. I mean, what did he do with that defining moment? This opportunity to really shift economic priorities toward working people in America, right? As opposed to Wall Street. Well, Obama's administration immediately bails out Wall Street, refuses to really prosecute anyone for the widespread fraud and, illegal behavior that was taking place that actually led to that economic collapse. And under Obama's watch, the disparity between the rich and the poor continued to widen, right? So it's just, again, it goes back to this delusional self-perception of I'm holier than thou, I'm better, just looking down at other leaders when refusing to take a good hard look at, how your so-called leadership in this country was so disastrous for so many working people, and the ramifications of that not only impact those working people, but continue to impact governance in this country. It continues to, you're right, it leads to a Donald Trump type character, because if you have someone like Obama, who both in 2008 and in 2012 ran on this message, this economic populist message, he would tap into that for his campaigning. And then as soon as he's elected, he'd be like, psych, just kidding. Yeah, people don't trust you or your party anymore. Right.
That's
politically,
why they got crushed.
That has
that's why they got crushed
consequences.
everywhere else. They got crushed in the state legislatures. I mean, the Democrats are a decrepit I mean, even though there is widespread rejection of Republican policies in the population, the Democrats just can't pick up that slack. And reading Obama's passages on the drone war is one of the most chilling things I have ever read in my entire life. I mean,
it's sociopathic.
It's sociopathic. It absolutely is sociopathic when he talks about, I wanted to give these people education and, a means to a better life, but I was forced to kill them. Like, he just openly talks about that, like talking about men in the Middle East. It is just like, when I read that, like, my jaw hit the ground. I was like, I could not believe that he would put those words to paper, that he actually thinks those thoughts, that he thinks of that in those terms. Like, it's just absolutely chilling to me. Like, this kind of like it's like worse than noblesse oblige. I don't know. It's like it's kind of like an updated version of the white man's burden, which is weird to talk about, say, with Obama because he was black. But
no, I get what you mean.
Yeah, it was absolutely horrifying.
What could I do? I didn't want to, but I had to kill him. I had to.
Look what they made me do. They forced me. I wanted to help them, but they, look what they made me do. It's just, it's really gross. I mean, Obama, no good.
For all the flaws that the New York Times has, every once in a while, their podcast, The Daily, has an interview that I think is pretty good and enlightening. And this week they had a man who grew up in Kabul. He lived in Kabul, and he talked about what it was like to live there when the war began during Bush's administration. And he specifically talked about the drone strikes and how terrifying it was to live in a country where on one hand the Taliban is forcing you to wear turbans, like you have to wear turbans, but if you're wearing turbans, the US military can't tell whether you're a kid going to school or if you're, so-called enemy combatant that they're trying to target. So many civilians died from those drone strikes. And he would talk about how he would risk getting caught by the Taliban not wearing his turban, and then he would put it on right before he would enter the classroom, so he wouldn't get in trouble. He was like afraid for his life. And so think about the number of people living in that region who have seen their loved ones killed by these drone strikes, civilians killed by these drone strikes. Yeah. And then how insanely insulting it is to have Bill Maher types say, in regard to how Muslims feel about America, they hate us because they hate us. No one can explain it. They hate us because of our freedoms.
Or because women can drive and shit. Yeah. The Obama administration reclassified enemy combatants to mean any military-aged male, essentially. Like, there was like any male between the ages of like 16 and 48 or something like that was described as an enemy combatant in the official statistics. Any death, meaning like if they found a cadaver of a guy who was between those ages, I was like, he's an enemy combatant. Like that. So the cynicism from Obama on this is just, it's absolutely breathtaking. And the other passage that was floating around that also made me miss Mike was hearing Obama talk about his college days and how he read Marx and Foucault in order to get pussy, essentially, and then he got friend zoned.
Yeah. I can't believe he wrote about that. Like, especially right now, like, I feel like everyone is incredibly sensitive about everything. I'm like, wow, Obama wrote about, how he's trying to pick up on women. Okay, cool. So, can you talk about that a little more?
It was the pre-woke era, but I'm just imagining, Michael Brooks doing Nation of Islam Obama in order to, like, while trying to pick up a chick by, like, quoting Marx to her. It would be, that would be a good bit.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll see what comes out in the second edition of his third memoir.
Right.
But
fourth.
That's fourth. I mean, who knows? Am I being too cruel in just harping on that?
No.
I don't know.
It's ridiculous. It's the most narcissistic
came out in
thing
1995.
Ever. Yeah, Dreams of My Father.
Dreams of My Father, 1995, and then Audacity of Hope was published in 06. And then, of course, he ran for president in 08.
Yeah. And now we're going to get at least two more. We're probably going to get another one. I mean, he got paid like a bajillions and bajillions of dollars. Like, his upfront a fee for this book was like just totally absurd. I don't know. Like, again, just at the end of the day, the political effects of Obama, even though he is personally like a cool guy and, you know, kind of has some swag to him, the political effects of Obama are incredibly destructive. Just very, very sinister. And this book just really, really has crystallized just like what a rotten man he is at his core, like what a rotten worldview he has, like what a sort of authoritarian and frankly conservative worldview he has. I mean, Andrew Sullivan, who like I despise obviously, but when he was like doing the Daily Dish and during the Obama years, he kept on insisting like, no, I like Obama because he's a conservative. Like I'm a conservative, but I like Barack Obama because he's a conservative. And at the time I was always like, yeah, okay, you're kind of like tying yourself into knots there, you know? But in retrospect, he was 100% right. Barack Obama is and always was and always will be a conservative.